name is Christina Strassfield, and I'm the Museum Director and Chief Curator here at Guildhall Museum. We want to thank LTV, who has come to film Alice Hope, who is our featured artist in our gallery today. So, Alice, welcome, and I want to tell you that the community at large has really been so full of praise for this exhibition. They've come in and they've been inspired, and the creativity and everything that's been involved. So my first question to you is, when did you first realize you were an artist?
I would say sophomore year in college when I took Sculpture 101, and I had this very influential teacher. He came from a minimalist background, and he had us read a lot of articles. I remember reading a lot of Rosalind Krauss, and I was, he pretty much indoctrinated me into minimalism. But the first project that I really got into was I worked with palettes and the repetition of palettes in different ways.
Artist palettes?
Not artist palettes, the palettes used to transport industrial materials. So it was the grid yes.
Wooden grid. So you've always used sort of non-traditional materials in your work?
Except when I was painting, and I paint, that tends to be very traditional materials. But with sculpture, yeah, I would say from the very beginning I was using non-traditional materials.
And you went on to get your master's degree at Yale?
Yes, and in painting. So it was. Yes.
I want to say that the first time I really saw your work was at Ashwalk Hall in a show that Elena Glynn curated. And at that point, it was a lot of the pieces similar to this piece, but much smaller in scale, that had to do with magnets and various materials that were attached. Can you tell us a little bit about that early group of work?
Yeah, well, with this piece and the pieces you're referring to, what's really interesting to me and what keeps me engaged with it is that the subject of the piece, that being magnetism, and the material of the piece are the same, and so it's held together entirely with magnets. There's no other adhering element, but it also creates a magnetic field that with my iPhone, I downloaded magnometers and I can sort of measure it, and there's a field of experience that's physical that the viewers can actually be in, and that's very interesting to me.
Working on this scale, because the other pieces were probably 2 feet by 3 feet, I think,
yes.
The early ones, and this one is
8 by 8.
8 by 8. So seeing you put this together was quite amazing, and I think that there's some YouTube videos now that we have online.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That I posted, just watching the process of creating it. How is it working on a scale this large?
It's transforming. I mean, it's given me a lot of ideas. I think that it has more reference to field painting and the potential of really working with polarity. With that piece, I play with the poles, and so there's a shift in pattern, and I would, which I can accentuate at a larger scale. When it was smaller, it was harder to play with that.
It was just exciting. I think that everyone who was here watching you lay the material down and then spread it around, it was really transformative, really very, very exciting. I want to talk about the can tabs, because that's what you're known for a lot. That's your monogram. And you're wearing a beautiful can tab piece. Can we talk about when you first started using can tabs and how did that happen?
I was at residency, and I was very focused on one commission that I was working on, and sort of in that rabbit hole. But it was Earth Day, and a local recycling center that's normally closed to the public. It's never open to the public, actually, but they opened their doors for the artists at the residency for Earth Day, and with the promise that we could pick out some materials for free if we made sculpture with it and used and and then donated the sculpture to the residency. And it was just, I was a kid in a candy store. There were so many small parts. I got the fishing tackle that's in that piece. There's a lot of swivel snaps, and there was just a huge amount. So it engaged me with starting to use fishing tackle. But then the real optical aesthetic experience was walking into this room that had an industrial size carton, and I looked in and it was all used can tabs, and I realized that all those can tabs had to be removed off the cans when I was looking at it, and that really was, it brought tears to my eyes actually because of the amount of effort. When I accumulate cans in my kitchen, it's one of my least favorite activities to take those can tabs that were designed to stay on the cans off. It's a lot of effort. You have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's not like that can tab in the 70s where
It just flipped.
exactly. So the amount of effort of all the collectors that took these can tabs off for charity, and then somehow it miraculously all got gathered and was in this room. It was like going into an installation in a gallery.
Absolutely. So when we're putting the exhibition together, the piece that's mounted on the wall, we love the idea, and we talked about it extensively, and you had the whole process of having it come off the wall. And I think when you're looking at it, so we have a two-dimensional piece basically on the wall, and really entering to your space really engages the visitor on so many different levels. The material and the texture of it, and people want to feel it and people want to touch it, people can relate to it, but they have to sort of go around it, in our case here. And that's been very, very inviting. And so I watch people come into the room, go on one side, should I hop over it, should I go around it? And I know that they want to touch it, they want to move the coils around, and luckily the guards are here to make sure that they don't. How many can tabs are there per inch?
It's a number that I could figure out because I know the footage, and it's a number that I'm asked for a lot, but I realized that I realized into this exhibition specifically that I wanted the viewers to stumble upon how much without the fact of how much. So, but I would tell you that there's 22 50-foot strands, and then there's 17 can tabs in an inch. But the block I think I have is just to keep, in this era especially, the viewers spend like 17 seconds on average on a piece of art, and so it is, I feel, that much more challenging for us as artists to sustain the viewer's attention. And so if they're grappling about how much it is, then they're lingering in front of it longer, and hopefully the aesthetic experience gets more substantiated.
Absolutely. I think they become more engaged, and I think the process of just looking at the material and trying to understand it and relate to it on so many different levels, an aesthetic level and a practical level, is always wonderful. You did talk about the cans, the red cans and the blue cans on that particular one coming from Budweiser's?
Yeah, one of the thrilling things was there's a lot of hidden labor in this piece because it required weeks and weeks of sorting out the Budweiser tabs from the enormous purchase I made of these used can tabs. So this red is the color of the Budweiser tab, and the blue is the color of Bud Light. And so it's both a found color, and which I love working with. Versus this piece where I was working with one of the properties of aluminum and the aluminum's ability to be anodized in the color So it's very specific to the material itself.
I think that the ones that are coming off of the wall, sort of the chandelier, and that particular piece again, the core on that one is a trash can that was found. Even though your work doesn't have to do with necessarily recycling, there's a wonderful energy again where you're looking into it and becoming involved. And when you're looking up at the chandelier, you're becoming actually involved with the whole piece, almost like it can overwhelm you. That's why when you went to the mattresses, when I saw those, that was extremely exciting. So how did that transformation happen to the mattresses?
I'm interested in what the mattresses reference, but it's also a play off of the grid, like what I mentioned in the very beginning, that I was working with palettes, and it gives a structure, but also what the box springs give is a surface for that magnets respond to. So there's a lot of versatility in how to use the box springs, and so with that box spring, I was able just to really have it be about magnetism, and then also with shadow and the pattern with shadow. And the spiral is coming into my work more and more. With, for example, in the organizing of this piece, and but I still feel like I have a lot to investigate with the box spring. This spring was a fun discovery in the show. In hanging it with you was that just really using force to manipulate that spring, because one thing is the memory of the spring is really. It's really hard to sort of counterweight it. Like I've tried, and I've consulted with many different people of how I can literally smash it and sort of have the spring lose itself, but I haven't found an effective way yet. But with this, using the force of weight, I was able to bend and have it work with the piece and have it seem like it's flowing more.
Absolutely. What's interesting now, again, you talked about the spiral, and the spiral is something that appears from ancient art all the way through, to Jasper Johns' Target, that circular motif over and over again. And as I'm sitting in the room looking at the bobby pin piece again, which is using part of a mattress coil, sort of that repetition of the circle and the spiral going over and over. And in the green one that you were just talking about, the spiral actually coming off the wall again, entering into our space and calling sort of the visitor into it to engage in it most closely, I think is just really very, very exciting. So sitting in the room, I've discovered even more about the particular pieces. The ball and chain, a lot of them, you had those dyed specifically that shade of green, correct?
Yes. Ball chain is really difficult. I've tried painting it myself, and the sort of malleability of ball chain gets locked. But through my ball chain source, he knows 2 people in the country that can paint it. And so I go back and forth and give them Pantone colors, and then it's not quite right. And but yeah, I was very specific to those particular colors, because I think there's a real conceptual balance between neon and camouflage. It's like caution, caution, and then recession. And so with both of these pieces, I'm working with sort of balancing out the shock and the desire to recede.
It was wonderful to watch the installation with the magnet piece, because it took so many people together, and it was really like a village working together to create that particular piece. Hiroyuki Hamada came in actually after doing part of his installation and joined in, and there was a wonderful, because everyone was talking and working and just getting engaged in the whole process of it, which is it was very wonderful to see that experience of everyone
really
joining
wonderful
together in just a great way.
Yeah, and the focus, it was such a generous collaboration with everyone.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about the one that's in the corner that's hanging down? Because I think that one is again made out of the can tabs. They're in their natural state in this case.
Yes.
And sort of the texture and the weight of it has a very different feeling to it.
Yeah, when I acquired the can tabs, I knew, because up to that point I was really relying on magnetism as being my primary attachment method, and can tabs being aluminum, it's a non-ferrite metal, and I had to, I spent a good year experimenting with attaching, and this is one method which really takes the can tab in a completely different direction, and many people have said it's like a pelt, and it's like and the density and the weight of it. So through my exploration, I've just really seen how, and it's a very simple understanding, but I've really experienced how methods of attachment of the same material just really work, just pull in polar directions. With this attachment of the can tab, I feel like I was able to transform the material so it really potentially doesn't matter. A viewer can experience it as a work of art, and the can tab is almost a tertiary understanding of the piece, I think, because it's not immediately recognizable.
How do you decide your latest piece, which is made with the bobby pins, how do you decide to suddenly use, I love that piece, you know that, I told you that I think it's just really exciting and a different direction. So how do you decide, and what makes that impetus come forward?
It all starts with a good deal. Like, for example, the ball chain, I was at a flea market and there was this big bucket of ball chain and it was a really good deal. And then I run out of that good deal and I have to source it. But I was at a costume jewelry wholesaler place that was it was going out of business, and it was just covered in materials and completely disorganized, but I found a large bag of copper-plated bobby pins, and I decided to buy them, and then I sat with the material for a long time, but then I saw that eventually I realized how perfect a fit it is with the box spring, because the top of the copper, and it's super satisfying in terms of my study of attachment, because it's just such like a click. The material, I find the materials, and then I figure out what to do with the materials, and I take it from there.
So do you have any other materials in storage right now that we're waiting to see the next?
Well, the copper bobby pin bins, I think I'm wanting to play with them some more to see about, but yeah, I don't have anything that I'm ready to report.
Well, it's always exciting to see the work that you've done and to just be part of the environment. I think the installation was so exciting. Everyone wanted to be in this room, and we had to control how many people were here, because I think each transformation, as each piece went up, people wanted to engage with the piece. So that's very, very exciting. And as an artist, you must feel really, that's such a powerful feeling for you, and I think it's great. So is there anything else you want to leave us with in terms of art philosophy?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. Could you ask it more specifically?
I think that the work, we've talked a little bit about the material and what inspired them, but the background to actually create art itself. Is there anything in specific that has come to mind?
Well, I think with this recent, work with can tabs, I feel like I'm a conduit to consumer culture, and I'm out there buying and then consequently having buyer's regret and the responsibility of ownership. And I think that there's a way I feel responsible to reflecting what's happening at least in a very tunnel way, with consumerism, and then the counterpoint of that being what we do with what we consume and how much we consume, and are we consuming too much? And all those ideas I'm struggling with in terms of how much materials I buy, and then the responsibility of owning the materials. So for a large period of time, I actually felt like I was drowning in, I still feel burdened by the ownership of can tabs, and I feel like that is a reflection of how we culturally feel about ownership and materials. So, but I'm not going to say that that's what I'm married to. But for this particular project, it's what I'm trying to channel, maybe.
Great. Well, I envision one day your work in the Guggenheim spiraling down the staircase, Frank Lloyd Wright Street.
Oh, it's a spiral, so my work with...
The spiral going
Yes.
on multi-many levels, and just having the can tabs actually in the center, filling the center. And I think
that would be
fabulous.
extraordinary.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your
Thank
being here.
you.
And we want to thank LTV for allowing us to get close to Alice Hope and be involved in this exhibition and to showcase it to a larger public. Thank you.
Thank you.